You have insurance for your house, your cars, and your life. But what about your wealth? We know how hard you have worked to build what you have. At Delta Harbor, our mission is to help you protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. During these uncertain times, make it a priority to safeguard and grow your wealth by incorporating these time-tested assets into your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Again, as I said earlier, my name is Darren Long. I am one of two directors here at Delta Harbor Assets, and my track record in the precious metals industry spans about the last 21 years. I'll deal more with that in a minute, but I do want to thank everybody for attending, and I know along the way we'll be adding more attendees as the evening progresses, and hopefully we'll give you and share with you some very pertinent information that can help you make smart decisions as far as your wealth strategy is concerned. I want to thank my entire team for being here this evening and to be at your disposal at the conclusion of this event to either book an appointment coming up or to call directly. We will be in office until 10:30 this evening. That is Eastern Standard Time for those in different time zones. And we're happy to entertain questions from you or for those that wish to speak further about our account options or to know more about our products or what type of products to buy. Our entire team is available right across Canada, so that will make it easy for you to do so. Again, thank you to everyone that's in attendance this evening. And I suppose to get this started, I think what would be best is to hopefully help people understand a bit better the context with which we find ourselves right now. And in particular, we're going to use a nice slide presentation to do that, so you don't have to see my mug all evening. But I will come back from time to time, and I will be available throughout the evening. And I will remind everyone that at the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A clickable button or icon. Please feel free at any time during the presentation to click that and pose a question. We will get to all of the questions at the end of this event, no matter who asked what, and there is no question that is either too small or too silly, only answers that are too silly. So we'll do our best to get through those as well. And without further ado, I'll pop open our first slide and do a share with you. And if you have any concerns, again, please just leave a message or speak to us throughout the presentation. Okay, let's see if we can get the screen share happening here. Let's go here. And here we go. And I will, for now, I will minimize myself here, move this out of the way, and I will click present. And here we go. Again, I will remind everybody that during this presentation, at any time, if you wish to ask a question, they will be tallied and answered at the end of the event. But don't let that stop you from clicking at any moment you wish. We're happy to do that. And I think our entire team is going to be looking at those questions and hopefully giving you the best answers possible. And what I do want to remember is, or for everybody to remember, is that tonight isn't just another market update. For us, this is a wake-up call to share with friends, family, potential clients, and existing clients that have come to this event. And some of you have been here before. Some of you have watched. Some of you have been part of this process before. But this is a time that we're living through of extraordinary pressure on the financial global system. We have historic inflation, rising geopolitical tensions. We have extremely aggressive tariffs that are threatening our way of life. We have a growing crisis of confidence in fiat currencies, or in other words, paper currencies. And the question for us really is no longer whether your wealth is vulnerable. We know it is. We already saw 2008 and what can potentially happen. The question is, what are you doing about it? And when I entered the precious metal space in 2004, Gold and silver were considered fringe investments. Back then, in fact, owning physical metal was seen as more speculative, something for outliers or doomsayers or gold bugs, if you will. But then 2008 happened, and the financial system cracked wide open, and millions of people saw exactly what was transpiring. And for us, that was the moment where seeing became believing. And if you look at that period of time between 2008 2025, every conceivable event has occurred between that time and now. And if we fast forward to 2025, what used to be theory is now fact. What once felt paranoid now feels prudent. Investors today are asking serious questions, and part of those questions are traditional investments still safe? Can we still put money in government bonds, and are they still safe havens? Is the US dollar, the almighty greenback, is that still the long term solution for global finance? Were all these tech market gains real or just illusions that were built on momentum? And we're seeing little holes poked all over the place, which give us some inkling as to exactly what's happening with this entire situation. And the one thing that we hear from the mainstream, because gold and silver is still fighting along to get into that mainstream, the one thing we constantly hear is, have I already missed the boat? Is gold and silver too expensive? And that mindset misses the forest for the trees. So back in 2005, when I started something called the Precious Metals Advisor, gold was around $430 an ounce. And when we look at where it's come since then, today over 3,350, give or take, that's not speculation. That's confirmation. And that's the market saying loud and clear, you were right to prepare. And yet most institutional portfolios still treat gold like an antique, and they allocate very little to it. In fact, about 1 to 2% of all globally managed assets have exposure to gold and silver, either paper or physical. And that's kind of the same love they give collectibles, or art or other types of things that are considered to be among the hard assets. Meanwhile, currencies are being debased, inflation is eating away purchasing power, and gold and silver remain drastically underowned. So let's take a look at what we're going to look at tonight. And that agenda is pretty easy. I'm sure everybody's read through it already. But those are the kind of key things we're going to discuss and go over. And to do that, let's just take a look at this first poll question that I'll pose to you here, so that we can get kind of some sense of where everybody thinks or why everybody invests. Let me see here if I can get this to drop down. All right. There it is. We'll do the first poll. Why I invest. Let's launch. Okay. Go ahead and click on a response, and you can choose any of those options there. And you can also rank them in terms of how you find them most important to least important. So we'll wait for the answers for that. Go ahead now, and we'll get your response. And while we're doing this, think about it from this perspective. This is no longer about chasing price for gold and silver. We're nowhere near a top of the market. It's about embracing a very large paradigm shift from speculation to certainty, from theory to proof, and from hope to what we would call preparedness. And that's kind of why we're here tonight. All right, we'll take 16 of the 23 of you that have answered. 17, 18, there we go. We're getting along here, almost done. All right. 20 of you have answered the poll questions. All right, that's pretty good. All right, let's end the poll there and see what we've got and share the results. There we go. Okay. So most of you chose to invest for some very obvious reasons, and you can see there via the colors which is the most important one. And of course, I think what wins there is you invest to preserve your wealth. So that's quite amazing. And you can see, we'll share that with you later. But that gives us some sense of why everybody's here. So we'll close that and we'll go on to the next slide. Now, when we talk about the risks of investing, I don't want to spend too much time on that. Suffice it to say, the risks that are out there that cause us to invest is what really is this slide all about. And ultimately, if you look at some of the things that are on that chart, those are things we're going to discuss about tonight. We're going to unpack, while we do this, the four unstoppable forces that drive the physical metals. And we're going to talk about these risks and how they kind of how they affect gold and silver pricing and where they've taken us so far. So we'll move over to the next slide. And again, just a reiteration of how we got here. And you can see there are various pressures on the system which kind of added up and put pressure on us during this journey. Now, I'll remind everybody that I got started back in 2004. And during this journey, not only have we done a million different things with physical gold and silver, but we've brought it to Canadians across every single province. And we've added all kinds of things like depository storage, Quest Trade accounts, which we'll discuss tonight. And it's culminated in part of the process now, as 2025 is here, in Delta Harbor being Canada's preeminent bullion dealer. And we are experts in this arena, and this is where we live, and this is all we do. So we are not jacks of all trades. We are experts in this particular arena. Now, when we unpack all of these various fundamentals, we need to look at long-term growth. And so most of you said you want to protect your wealth. Diversification isn't what it used to be. In fact, in the old days, diversification was stocks, bonds, and cash. Pretty simple. It didn't include gold and silver, and if it did, it was all in paper form. You might have owned paper investments in mining stocks and other things like that, and now, of course, in the modern era, ETFs, but that's what we considered diversification. Well, along comes 2005, and a firm called Ipsen Reed and Associates did a huge long-term study, and they looked at 40 years of data. It was all anonymous data that was shared from trading institutions and banks. And what they found out via researching that data, that the most non-correlated asset class to those paper traditional investments, which we thought were diversifying our overall wealth, what the most non-correlated asset class was, ended up being gold and silver. So in other words, all the paper assets move together, while gold and silver in physical form do not. So in the modern day, not only does diversification include equities and fixed income, cash and equivalents, it also includes alternative investments. Of course, we've just been through a huge phase of real estate investing, and you know where that's going. We'll talk a bit about that. But of course, now gold and silver are about to have their kind of highlight moment, where for the next, what we anticipate will be a decade or longer, gold and silver will run higher in price. So why gold? Why silver? Again, these are all good points. And what we want to really just focus in on here is the fact that gold and silver have been around. These are not new things. They've been around for 5,000 years. And it wasn't until the mid 80s that gold and silver lost favor with most investors. In the early 90s, we turned to plastic, and the introduction of Interac and living off our plastic, and the introduction of credit cards for the youth, and credit for not just building businesses or planning expenses ahead or making sure we had a reasonable amount of supplies or inventory for our business. But now credit became in the 90s something that was achievable by everybody. And of course, that presented a whole world of risks. And by basically the loss of the dot-com era and the fall of the NASDAQ and 9/11, it changed the tide. So when we look at why gold, we're looking at all fundamental reasons. Wealth preservation and stability. It's a hedge against inflation and currency risk. It's a safe haven and is viewed as a safe haven, has been for lots and lots and lots of decades, years, thousands of years, through different eras, the fall of every currency. Gold has survived those falls, silver as well. It's tangible, and you can still have private ownership of it. You can take a bar of gold home with you and pass that along to the next generation without probate, without lawyers, without paperwork, nothing. They just need to know where it's stored and how to get access to it. And you can pass it on to the next generation. Portfolio diversification, as we just mentioned, is a huge one. And also, people think that this doesn't have liquidity or that it's not transportable. It's highly liquid and it's highly transportable. In fact, I'll make the argument that both gold and silver are the two most liquid assets in the entire world. Think about it. You can take the Canadian dollar with you to any country in the world, and odds are many of them won't exchange it or have a readily available exchange system for that. You'll have to put it into US dollars and then convert it to another currency of the region. But gold can be taken anywhere. And when we think of silver, not only do we think of all those same points as gold, but we also think the renaissance that silver's having. So gold being a little bit more expensive than silver by ounce does not account for this or the other kind of situation that we find ourselves in when it comes to usages for silver. Traditionally, back in the 70s, the last bull market, we had jewelry, silverware, coins, collectibles, photography, and implied investment. And that was it. That's all we used it for. In fact, photography was the biggest usage center that was putting demand on our silver reserves. But fast forward to 2025, and digital photography is the mainstay. And of course, what's happened is you've had a renaissance. Now you see it in all those current usages. And again, that tells us that going forward, you have inelastic demand for silver. And that, for us, is one of the key reasons why you want to have silver in your portfolio. So again, if we extend that a little bit further and go to the gold-silver ratio, right now, that ratio is around 88 to 1, meaning it takes 88 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. Traditionally, that ratio is 16 to 1. 16 to 1. In the Roman times, it was 16 to 1. And historically, what it meant was there was approximately 16 ounces of silver coming out of the ground for every 1 ounce of gold they would find. And that's how the ratio began. Fast forward to the 1900s, and that ratio starts to get skewed. You have a gold standard, which pegs gold at a value of $35 to 1 ounce, 35 US dollars to 1 ounce. And that standard runs all the way through the 1900s, all the way up to 1971 when Nixon ends the gold standard, at which point it free floats. And you know the history of this. I don't have to tell it to you. I'm sure most of you know gold and silver went ballistic during the 1970s bull market. In fact, gold hit an all-time high at the time of 850 and silver hit $52.50, which we have yet to get back to. Another reason why we believe silver is a very undervalued asset and easy to justify ownership of. In addition to that, if we look at above ground supplies, silver is not readily available. There are a handful of huge mines producing silver. There are no new mines. It takes 7 to 10 years to ramp up a brand new mine. And quite frankly, when you look at the supply of above ground silver, it's gone from what was a couple of billion ounces in the 1970s all the way down to about just over a billion ounces available now, of which most is taken up by investment or hoarded through vaulting programs around the world. So most of the silver that comes out of the ground comes as a byproduct of other types of mining. In fact, 80% of silver comes out of the ground is coming as a byproduct of other types of gold mining, metals mining, mining for copper, zinc, lead, and that's where we get most of the silver coming out of the ground. So for the last 2 decades, about 16 of those 20 years have left us in structural deficit, meaning we've exhausted all of the above ground supplies. And you throw in this new bull market and what is going to happen in terms of demand moving forward with things like solar and EV and green energy. And the rest of the world is going to be put on notice that this metal must go higher in order to achieve equilibrium. So while you're listening to this right now, you have a chance, an opportunity of a lifetime, which really only very astute investors are aware of. So let's move to the next slide. Now, if we look at prices today, this is July the 16th, you can see what that chart shows. And essentially, it shows gold and silver measured by various amounts of time. Today, the price of gold is up $11. Price of silver was up a nickel when I made this chart. And you can see the 30, 6 months, 1 year, 5 year, and 20-year track records of gold and silver in US dollars. That data does not lie. That is totally accurate data, which most people around the world know very little about or understand. They've never been told by their bankers, their planners, their advisors, the people that they trust much about gold and silver, let alone by the people that are talking about where to invest on the big channels of BNN and CNBC and others around the world. Gold and silver take a backseat to almost all of it. Yet, it is the most cost-effective way for you to take home an investment, have tangible insurance for your wealth, and be able to pass it on to the next generation. And you can see its track record. It's outperforming 80+% of the entire market. And if you compare it only to the Canadian market, you can look at just a handful. In fact, it's smaller than 3 things that I can think of that have outperformed gold and silver in the last 20 years. And so when we look at it, this is a story that not many people know about and that we're happy to bring to the public. So keep that in mind as you listen to this presentation. Let's go to a poll question here. Okay. And for those that are watching, let's take the next poll question and let's launch it. All right. That poll question is now active. And I encourage you to go ahead and to answer that poll question. How high will silver go in the next 2 years? And let's see where we get in terms of respondents. Again, while you're doing this, feel free to scroll to the bottom of your page in your Zoom program and to click on the question and answer portion. Again, you may not have many questions yet, but feel free to click and ask any questions you want. They'll be tallied and answered at the end of this presentation. All right, we have 23 of the 29 respondents answered. And that's a pretty simple poll. You can see 50% of the respondents already, before I close this off, are expecting the price of silver to pass $60 an ounce. That means it's going to go from where it is right now, sitting at a US dollar price that's roughly 37 and change. And you, as a viewer of this presentation, believe it's going to go to 60. If that's the case, that's money in the bank. That's real good return on your investment. All right, so let's go and take a look at that now. We'll end the poll. Let's see what everybody said. Let's share the results. Okay. So you can see 48% of respondents said $60 an ounce or higher. Again, put in the question and answer if you don't mind while you're going through this. Ask the question, maybe not so much as a question, but as an answer, why? Or make a comment. You can also use the question portion to make a comment, and we'll be happy to read that comment too, because I'd love to know what your thoughts on are why it's going to go 60 plus. We're going to talk about a lot of reasons why that is the case, but let's move on here as we go along to the next slide and talk about the 4 fundamentals. Well, let me take a few minutes to set the stage for why this conversation is so meaningful. Because this isn't just theory, it's grounded in lived experience. And it's backed by real world events, and it's shaped by the economic transformations we've all witnessed over the past 2 decades. I entered the precious metals industry in 2004, and back then gold was trading around $380 an ounce, while silver was around $4. At that time, the financial system appeared very stable. We had very stable interest rates. We had very little to no inflation. It wasn't a front page concern. The global economy seemed to be firing on all cylinders, but there was this essence in the background that was creeping up, that was kind of speaking out to people like myself who were kind of trying to find the next big, huge cycle of what was going to happen in the marketplace. And below the surface, people were starting to utter the word safe haven and insurance for your wealth. And the gold bugs got active. You started to see things on blogs and on the internet that started to pop up talking about silver and gold. And as we've seen, surface appearances can be very deceiving. And shortly after I entered the metals market, the US housing market began to surge. And so you had easy credit, you had lax regulations, and you had a hunger for profits that created one of the most enormous speculative bubbles in history. And what followed essentially was what we called the subprime mortgage crisis, which was um, a deep exposing of very structural flaws in the system within our banking system, which led directly to 2008 global financial crisis. And this wasn't just a market correction; it was a near collapse of the global financial infrastructure. And at that time, I thought, what's driving gold and silver? It's got to be more than headlines. And so I looked back and I studied the last 100 years of bull markets. There were 4 bull markets prior to this. And in every single bull market back to the early 1900s, there was 4 underlying pillars that kind of were present. One was currency devaluation, or what the reserve currency of the time was doing. Now it's the US dollar, before it was the British pound, and so on and so forth. If there was currency devaluation or there was money printing, it always led to inflation, and inflation always caused gold and silver to go higher in price. It was met also with fluctuations in demand and supply, and there was always something geopolitical happening. If you think back to the 70s, the Iran hostage situation, the Russia-Afghanistan war. There were so many situations that were fundamentally changing. The end of the Vietnam War and the change that Nixon made in 71 when he ended the gold standard, which essentially meant you could no longer exchange gold for US dollars and vice versa. And so when that happened, money printing started to occur. And even though Nixon said in 71 that that wasn't going to be the case, it absolutely did happen. And of course, the rest is history. The prices of gold and silver shot through the roof. And really, if you look at it historically speaking, the biggest movement happened in the last 90 days of the bull market. Well, if we're 10 years away from that happening, and we've already seen the price of gold and silver rally drastically, what lies ahead? Just start thinking about that and apply that to your planning. Apply that to your logistical planning for your wealth strategy. What do you want to fund in the next 10 years? Your retirement? Do you want to get that boat for the cottage? Do you want to have that investment property? Do you want to retire with a little bit more money in your pockets that you can go tour the world? These are the things I think about when I add this type of insurance to my own portfolio, and some of the reasons why I own gold and silver. So let's go into depth in each one of these and see what it has to offer us. Now, currency devaluation, that's an easy one. 2008 happened, and it took approximately about 160 years from George Washington to George Bush Jr. to create around $800 million US dollars floating in circulation. 2008 occurs, Obama takes over, and between Obama to now Trump, we have seen that $800 million jump all the way to $5.5 trillion, just under $6 trillion. Now, if it was only happening in one country, that would be, something that we could focus on and just center around. But when 2008 occurred, it wasn't just one country. It happened globally, and everyone started printing money. Canada was among the worst, and you've just seen a Liberal government, which prior to Carney spent more than they've ever spent in the entire history of every other prime minister. This is something that we're looking at, and one of the reasons why we see inflation occurring, because when the printing presses turn on and when you see all of this money get printed, you cannot help but understand this from the perspective of what really occurs. And so when we move forward through this journey, currency devaluation always leads to inflation. And the reason why currencies devalue is because as you're printing money, you're asking the world to be able to pay back your debts using your money. So if you want to be able to keep control of those debts, you have to decrease the value of your currency, which means you get less pressure on your debts. So currency devaluation is happening. It's happening all over the world. We're seeing it with our dollar. We're seeing the US dollar, all the G20 nations, the Eurozone, and this is an issue. What does this lead to? Well, this leads to inflation. And the best way for us to describe inflation, and I'll remind people as we're going through this, at the bottom you have a Q&A clickable link. Please, if you have a question that comes up during the presentation, add it there and we'll be happy to answer it at the end of this presentation. But as we print money and we print hand over fist and we take 800 million and we take it into the atmosphere now in less than 17 years, 18 years, from 800 million, which took 160 years to create, all the way up to $5.6 trillion, almost $6 trillion, what's going to happen? You're going to get inflation. The value of the money is not going to be there, and it's going to shrink your purchasing power. Now, in order to best describe to you what that looks like, let's use our own currency as an example and why we love gold and silver, because it protects purchasing power. And you might say, Darren, how does it do that? Well, think of this example. In 1967, you could take 4 dimes and buy roughly a gallon of gas in Canada. Back before the measurement system changed, you were on the gallon, not the liter system, and you could buy with 4 dimes, you could buy 1 gallon of gas. In 1967, those 4 dimes, in fact, had 80% silver in them. And so that was at the time an affordable gallon of gas. And if we fast forward to 2025, think quickly. What does 4 dimes buy you? What can you actually buy with 4 dimes? Next to nothing. Can't make a phone call. You can go into a store and maybe you can just, maybe you can just buy up some candy. But guess what you could do with the silver in those 4 dimes over the span of every boom, bust, recession, financial crisis, everything in between. Extract the silver out of those 4 dimes from 1967 and fast forward to 2025. Not only does it still buy you 1 gallon of gas, it buys you more than 1 gallon of gas. In fact, it is kept and maintained its purchasing power, which is part of the reason why we want you to own gold and silver over the long term, for you, for your wealth, as insurance for your wealth, and for the protection of that wealth, which you all indicated was very important to you. So think no further than this example of what inflation does to your purchasing power. That money in your savings account, put it into gold and silver. Drive home the very essence of why gold and silver has been so beneficial to us over the long term in protecting our purchasing power. In the Roman times, 1 ounce of gold would buy you a toga and a beautiful bottle of wine and a dinner out. Back in that day, that's what they were wearing, the togas. Fast forward to 2025, take 1 ounce of gold. It still buys you a fine custom suit, a beautiful bottle of wine, and a lovely dinner out, and then some. So take 4,000, 3,000 years of history, and it still maintains its purchasing power. We don't think about this, and the people we trust to manage our money, our bankers, the people that we work with on a daily basis, they don't tell us this or remind us this at all. So inflation is a very, very important key ingredient to a bull market in precious metals. And if you look back to the 1970s, that's exactly what happened. Inflation went rampant. Mortgage rates went into double digits. I talk to people all the time that had mortgage rates in the low $20 range. Some were paying 22, 23% for a mortgage. And so that is happening again right now as we speak. It looks slightly different, but the valuation of homes is far greater than it was back then in comparison to our income. So inflation is a huge role player in determining where gold and silver goes. Now, if you're listening to this and you think that gold and silver are going to go higher, then you also are a believer that inflation is here to stay for the foreseeable future. Now, a third component of every single bull market is supply and demand. And really, when we look at gold and silver, what we're talking about is dwindling geography. And if you look at the total available geography that is or can be mined around the world, what we're looking at is a falling amount of resource. As the world population grows and we consume more and more livable land, there is less and less diggable ground. And so mining activities have slowed over the last 2 decades to the point, even though gold is much higher, that really you're not getting a ton of large mining activities happening. You're getting some regional mining activities and you're getting much smaller mining activities occurring, but you're not getting large amounts of mining activity. So when we look at supply and demand, it also plays a very important role. And in particular, what we can say of supply is that it's not elastic. You can't print gold or silver. You can't digitally engineer more out of thin air. And mining output, as it's flatlining, also takes into consideration grade quality, which is also falling. And as I mentioned earlier, 80% of silver coming out of the ground is coming as a byproduct of other types of mining: copper, zinc, lead, gold. And really, when you look at it, the demand side of the equation, well, for gold, the heavy demand part of it is the demand for investment. It's also in medicinal usages. It also has a place in military high end usages for electronics and things of that nature. But silver's undergone a renaissance, and that demand is very industrial. So it hasn't even begun to see the effects of what the mainstream will have when it starts buying silver hand over fist. And you talk about participation rates. If only 2 or 3% of all globally managed assets have exposure to gold and silver, what happens when we have 8 or 10 or 12 or 15%, 20% of people getting exposure? The prices have to go exorbitantly higher in order to do that. And right now, you're alive in a place and a time and a moment in which we have the highest amount of demand and we have a falling amount of supply. So this equation is very simple. When you look at supply and demand, it spells out for us very clearly that going forward, it's not favorable for gold and silver in terms of supply. It's very favorable in terms of demand. So the price has to go higher in order to meet that equilibrium. And of course, this entire thing would not be possible without the change in mentality. When 2008 occurred, in fact, central banks around the world became net buyers of gold. And so since 2009, they have been net buyers of gold. Prior to that, they were selling on normal every year basis. They would sell a little bit, and the IMF would make rules about how much could be sold into the marketplace and so on and so forth. And now you look at the geopolitical risk similar to what we saw in the 70s and you multiply it. Back in the 70s, there was no fear of domestic terrorism. Now that fear is real. Back in the 1970s, you didn't have these threats that we're seeing now. And every day I pick up and read the various research reports. It's telling us that we are likely to see more geopolitical hotspots than not. This is not a calming time in our history around the world. We're looking at Middle East, Ukraine, US-China relations, US BRIC nations. We're looking at West Africa and North Korea, and we're looking at all kinds of unstable regions, which cause central banks around those areas to want to hold assets which hold value, because only holding the US dollar is not safe. There will come a time when literally overnight the currency regime will change and we will have a Bretton Woods moment in which the US dollar will no longer be the reserve currency. What could take its place? Who knows? Anybody's guess is as good as mine, but the BRICS nations are certainly gathering steam towards a point in time, maybe in the next 10 years, in which we will give that serious consideration, knowing that they collectively love gold and silver. What does that spell out for you as an investor? You are way ahead of the curve by owning gold and silver now. Not only are you taking advantage of this moment, but you're also taking advantage of what is lying ahead in terms of geopolitical risk and the demand that comes as a result of that. So, if we look at Delta Harbor assets and we consider all of those pillars, it's very important to come to some understanding of what we do as a company and how we can get gold and silver out to you and to all of our client base around the world in various account options. We do, as you can see here, 5 basic account options. All of them are physical gold and silver. We do not entertain any type of physical gold and silver that is not tangible, that we can't touch, hold, and see. So there may be other options out there like ETFs and trusts and things of that nature. But when we can't get in to see them, we can't be 100% certain that those assets actually exist. So for us, home delivery, vaulted storage, Fairmind Eco Gold, which is more of the interested parties of people who are looking for responsibly mined gold, registered bullion accounts, your TFSAs, RSPs, LIFs, LIRAs, RIFs, and things like that for Canadians, and wholesale bullion, which we'll talk about, which gives us exposure to physical gold and silver, but doesn't force us to have to pay high premiums or take the product home if we feel unsafe about it. And those options are very easily explained. And of course, they can be part of any brief discussion you want to have with any of our account representatives, the brokers here on hand this evening after this event, or if you'd like to book an appointment. Again, I'll remind everybody as we're listening to this presentation that at the bottom of the screen, you can click the Q&A icon and you can ask any question you like. We'll be happy to answer all of them at the end of this presentation. And when we're talking about home delivery, when you are looking at our website, you can simply go there, shop for your product from the comfort of your home, your phone, wherever you might be. On vacation, you see a dip in the marketplace, you want to go to the website, boom, you can pick up some product and pay for it. It's pretty straightforward. All of our packages are 100% insured. We ship free across all of Canada when you spend $350 or more. And of course, delivery can go to your home or business. You can buy product as a corporate entity. If you're an employer, you can put this into an employee benefits program. If you are just an individual investor, you can set up a monthly buying program that will allow you to put the same amount of money, and you can either allow the broker to buy you the best value product, or you can tell us you want to repeat a specific amount every single month. This buying is predominantly done from the comfort of your home. You can come into office to do it, or you can give us a quick call to do that by phone, and we'll be happy to take the order for you. All right, before we get into registered accounts, let's take a poll question. All right, let's see here. Let's get up to our poll questions here. And let's go back and ask our last poll question of the evening. All right. All right. This one's not letting me allow panelists to vote. All right. This poll question will not launch. I cannot see it, so I am just going to kill it. The question was, and I'll ask it, you guys can answer it to yourselves, but I always win on this one. What is in your registered account? So usually when I'm doing face-to-face seminars and I'm in a meeting area and I have 50 or 60 people in front of me and I'm asking a question, I will always start by breaking the ice and asking the simple question. Put up your hand if you have a registered account, a TFSA, an RSP, a LIF, a RIF, whatever. And about 3/4 of the crowd will put up their hand. I will then ask, keep your hand up if you could name one of the funds that you owned in your registered account. A lot of people will keep up their hand and they'll say, oh, the RBC World Fund or this fund or that fund or whatever. And then I will ask a simple question. I will ask, in that fund, can you tell me 50% or more of the companies that are located inside? And the answer 99.999% of the time is that no, you cannot. I usually always win a steak dinner out of that question. And if you can't, it means you are not knowledgeable about your wealth. And I think that everyone that invests a single dollar or $1,000,000 should be knowledgeable about their wealth. And so that is what we think when we come to that, and when we talk about that particular part of this presentation. And let's get into registered accounts. All right. Back in 2015, I started this process. I went to Questrade, among other partners, and I asked them who wanted to be part of this great opportunity. And Questrade took us up on our offer. What do we like about Questrade? Well, working with Questrade means we're working with a private company. That means it's outside of the banking system. Two, all of the fail safes and all of the regulatory insurance and all of those things that are required to have a successful partnership are in place. And three, it ultimately means that since that time, you can put gold and silver, physical bars and coins, into your registered bullion accounts. This is not an ETF or a futures contract. This is real bars, coins, silver, gold, platinum, palladium. It's stored in a vault that you can visit and you can hold and tangibly see. You can buy and sell by phone. You can do that by looking at your account, log in just like you would a stock. It is fully allocated to you, the client. It is segregated from everybody else's holdings, and you don't need Delta Harbor in order to have this. That's the best part. We are the mediator. We provide the bullion, but the account is yours. So we actually set this up for you. We get this going. But in the event that somehow, because somebody always asks this question, we didn't exist any longer, and after 21 years, we're still here, so I don't think that that's going to happen. But in the event I didn't exist any longer, my team wasn't here, your bullion is completely segregated and allocated to you. Another dealer would pick up the account. So everybody that has a registered account should have bullion in a TFSA to start with. That's the easiest one of all. But you can do all of the registered account types and multiple. And because of the flexibility of the registered account programs in Canada, you can keep your TFSA with TD. You don't have to move it all over here. Just move the portion under the umbrella of the TFSA that you want to keep here. And we can just move that portion over to Questrade using Delta Harbor. You don't have to talk directly to Questrade. You don't have to call your planner or advisor. You can talk directly to your account manager at Delta Harbor. He will help you designate this account for what it is supposed to be, the TFSA, RSP, LIRA, LIF, RIF, get all of the processed, and then all of the account information over to Questrade. It's very easy to do, and it means that you'll have real physical gold and silver inside of your RSP without any changes to the tax structure, without paying any taxes, without any of that. It all stays under the umbrella of the registered account, even when you're moving it from your existing institution over to Questrade with Delta Harbor. Again, this is a completely regulated account. It's fully insured. It's tangible, hold in your hand wealth, and it is the same exact gold and silver bars, platinum, palladium bars that you would take home in home delivery or that you would put into your vault. So this is an awesome way to take advantage of all the tax benefits for people that are using registered accounts right now. Same great advantages as the TFSA, and right now I think it's 2,000 and change that you can put into this account if you've never had a TFSA and you qualify for the full amount. So that's a lot that you could put in and protect against capital gains through a TFSA account with Delta Harbor assets. And this is something we can help you with also and should be discussed, even if it's just to rule it out as an option. This is something that I would highly recommend you do. Again, moving on, wholesale bullion accounts. Well, when we started in this process, and when I started doing accounts back in 2004, finding access to all of the bullion that we needed to sell was not always easy. We had to call around and we had to get situated and find wholesalers and find people to work with. And one of the partners that had been in the back end working for a while with other dealers around North America was Precious Metals International. So we partnered with them, created that relationship, and what it offered to us was the opportunity for investors to go into an account, which we call wholesale bullion, own physical gold and silver, which is bars, coins, all of the same things that you will hold outside of this type of account. But instead of paying the premiums associated with a 10-ounce bar or a kilo bar or a 1-ounce bar versus a 100-ounce bar, you would pay the lowest possible premium that we could think of. In the arena of silver, as an example, the lowest possible premiums are charged on what we call 1,000-ounce bulk industrial bars. If you were trading in the futures market or doing options on futures and you took delivery of a contract, it's 5,000 ounces. So you might get 5 roughly 1,000-ounce silver bars. So instead of doing it that way, what we started doing with Precious Metals International is putting this bullion into a vault, onto a skid, and just maximizing the potential of that bullion. So rather than you having to worry about taking it home if you didn't want to be exposed to that risk because home insurance is costly or for whatever reason you have for being and staying safe, and you wanted to take a portion and allocate it to this wholesale bullion account, what you get is the lowest possible premium, which is roughly 30 cents above spot price per ounce in silver and $4 above spot in gold. You tack on our fee for opening the account, and lo and behold, what you end up getting is the industry's lowest way of maximizing your dollar invested. And if somebody wanted to get into the marketplace, for me, when the market is moving like it is in a bull market, this is hands down the single best way I can think to invest. It has the lowest cost physical bullion available anywhere that I'm ever or have been ever made aware of. It has the ability for you to buy and sell in 1-ounce increments. So you can buy and sell silver in 1-ounce increments once you've opened up your account, which means you can go ahead and make small changes to that account. And the best part of it all is the fact that you're able to use your silver and gold as collateral to boost the value of your account. So if you go ahead and open up an account for 1,000 ounces of silver and you have that 1,000 ounces of value to spend, let's say it cost you, $47,000 or $48,000 to get into the market, you could also choose to hold as much as 80% of that 48,000 back. Let the process of other people's money take over. Still own 1,000 ounces. They're in your name. They're your ounces. You can trade them in 1-ounce increments, and you can hold back up to 80% for a rainy day. Put it towards another investment, or down the road, if you so choose, say, hey, listen, I like it right now, but I don't think it's for me. And 2 years from now or a year from now or whenever it is, you can take that additional money that you held back and you can apply it to your account and you can get rid of your collateral financing. But it's there for you to use whenever you want. And as the value of your gold and silver increases, you'll get opportunities to sell. This is not day trading, but this presents opportunity for you as an owner to maximize your return. And that's really what we want to do with this account. So for those who are looking to absolutely supercharge their earning potential without taking the maximum amount of risk, this is the best account option for you as an account holder. You'll be able to log in. You have a dashboard, which is updated every second. Every time you click refresh, you'll see the new value of your account. You'll know what it's worth. You'll be able to look in and see all your statements online, just like you do your registered accounts and so on and so forth. And you'll be able to maximize your earning potential by saying, hey, Darren, listen, that was a good trip the last 36 months. We liquidated a portion of our holdings or all of our holdings. Now I want to buy it all back. And every dollar of profit I make, I want half to stay in cash and I want the other half to go towards new ounces. And we start the trip all over again. And before you know it, you've taken that 1,000 ounces and you've turned it into 5,000 ounces. And you didn't dip into your pocket to do it. You didn't have to go anywhere or do anything to increase your position other than be smart about the changes in the marketplace. Look at the charts. They tell us that these climactic moments happen: 04, 06, 2008, 2011, 2020, where the price of silver rallies really high and then there's a period of consolidation. All you have to do is listen to your account broker, get a little bit of feedback on the account and where the market's at, make a little bit of a sale on your account, and then wait for the bottom of the market somewhere near that position when it consolidates and then decides to go back up again. This is the opportunity that is presented to you when you're using the wholesale bullion accounts. And again, our representatives can talk to you about this, answer more questions, but this is one for sure. For me personally, I've been using the account since 2005. And this is an account which I personally love the most. Hands down. Yes, I take some of my bullion home. It's not as necessary for me personally. I have access to it other ways. I do store some in my registered account, but this account has put my earning potential into the upper atmosphere in terms of return. And this I will put up against any other method of ownership anytime in a bull market. And so I want you to consider this also as a potential client with our firm, or if you're an existing client and haven't tried it yet, it's time to talk about it. All right, and one of the last ones is vaulted storage. You may simply want to know that your bars are a specific type. You may want the serial numbers. You may want to have, 500 10-ounce bars, 100 100-ounce bars, and maybe a bit of gold and platinum. You want to put it into a specific spot. You want to have it allocated, segregated, and you want to be able to put your hands on that and audit it whenever you want. That's the vaulted storage account. This can be set up as a corporate account or as an individual account. You can buy and sell by phone. You can bring bullion in. You can take bullion out. And when it comes to storage, this type of account has a ultra low storage fees. And the more you store with us, the lower those fees go. So ultimately, it's a very cost-effective account, and it leaves you lots of room and opportunity to do something that might be a little more advantageous for you as an investor, especially when you're thinking about having ownership of that bullion in your hands and keeping it that way. Again, not for everybody, but for those that wish to have that, that is one way that you can do that and have the assurance that you know exactly what your serial numbers are, how many 10-ounce bars you have, how many 100-ounce bars you have, and so on and so forth. And I encourage you to do that as well, and to look into that option also. Now, I won't spend too much time on this, but I did mention that there was Fairmine Eco Gold. A while back, we looked into our community and we wanted to support other opportunities for ownership. And one of the things that we came up with, and that we're the only bullion dealer in Canada to offer, is Fairmine Eco Gold. And again, you can see this is for the purpose of ownership for those that are worried about the social impact on mining communities, where you want to know the exact origin of the gold you're buying, and where you want to make certain that there has been responsible environmental practices. Now, this is not to suggest bullion you buy from the Royal Canadian Mint isn't that way too, or that bullion you buy from the Swiss makers, Belcambi or Credit Suisse or Argor Horus, isn't also that way, but this is another option for you as an owner of gold and silver to be able to accumulate gold and have that reassurance in the back end. Now, I guess this gets us to our question and answer period. And what I'll do here is I will get us back out of this here. I'll stop the share for a moment, and then we'll go back into the slides where we will do question and answers. So let me just bring back this here for a second. We'll stop the share, put on my video, and you can see my ugly mug again. I want to welcome everybody again to the presentation, and thank you for taking the time this evening. And let's go to our question and answers. Okay. All right, we have a question, and you won't be able to see these, so I'll just be reading them off. And the very, very first question we have is from one of our viewers, and it says, what is the best performing account that you offer? And I believe that my partner, Robert Stevenson here at the firm would like to answer this question. So let's see if we can bring up Robert and get him going. Okay, Robert, if you want to go ahead and speak.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Darren.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so in terms of the account that offers the best performance, I would hands down say the wholesale bullion account, because not only does it give you the best cost, the lowest cost for all of our products, you can also use the leveraging option. And that will give you by far the biggest ROI on the accounts.
That is bang for your buck, for sure. And I think that's an awesome way to say, hey, listen, if you really want to maximize your dollar and take it the furthest it will go, that's the option that you would choose. Rob, do we have any other questions here that we need answering?
Yeah, we got a few here. So
Okay, go ahead, shoot the next one.
And ask them here. So any quick thoughts with other metals like copper, platinum, and from what I know, we've dealt with even things like rhodium from time to time.
Yes, absolutely. The platinum, the PGM group of metals, which includes rhodium and molybdenum and palladium and platinum, these are very, very rare metals. In fact, very hard to come by. I like platinum, and as I'm sure our viewers are paying attention, the platinum market more recently has risen about in the last 6 months, 50%. It is bound to go much higher, and we do offer platinum, so our clients can come in any of our account forms and add platinum to their holdings. Easy to do, and we encourage it. The one thing I would say about the platinum group of metals is that it is a very thinly traded market. There are times when that market will, without word, fluctuate, and you could get $100 a day fluctuation. That has happened in the past. I do encourage you to do as much research as possible on that account type. The other thing I'll say about the platinum group of metals is that there are two countries who predominantly mine the PGM group, which is South Africa and also Russia. And those are two somewhat unstable jurisdictions as far as we're considering mining activities. So you could get nationalism projects that do take over from time to time, or if there is any type of economic shock, you could get moments where their economies are not moving as freely, which could put some undue stress on the platinum or PGM group of metals. That being said, platinum is predominantly used in catalytic converters. It's used in jewelry. It's used in a few other medicinal things as well as military applications. But it is experiencing a renaissance of sorts, like similar to silver in the sense that applications are growing by the year for it. But people have been hesitant to include it in any major industrial applications because it is predominantly a difficult metal to come by in terms of mining capacity. So if we're looking at existing mining supplies, it's been in structural deficit for around the last 4 years, I believe it is. And this year they're expecting almost 1 million ounces shy of total demand. So it is an interesting situation to be in. And that is an interesting question. As far as copper is concerned, it's not an area of expertise for me, suffice it to say. Gone are the good old days where you could go out and find some copper laying around in house projects that are being knocked down, so forth, to get your hands on that. Copper seemingly is going to go in ebbs and in flows with the amount of boom and bust in economies. If you look around the world, just simply look at where the world is expanding. And as long as it's got housing projects which are expanding, copper is a big part of that. So you can look at those projects and determine for yourself what the future might hold. But as far as being an expert in that arena, it's a little bit above my pay grade.
Great, thank you very much.
No
And
problem.
platinum, we've seen over the last number of years, it's been pretty stagnant. However, since May, it's gone up 40%, which
It's
is
a huge boom.
Yeah. Okay. Next question here is Delta Harbor Assets. Do we just deal with the Canadian market?
We don't deal with just the Canadian market. Just today, it's a great question. Just today, We were talking with partners, and we're moving a large sum of gold to another part of the world, in fact, to Portugal. And so we deal with clientele all over the world. Basically, we do look to work in the stable jurisdictions, so we do not move product into unstable jurisdictions. We can talk about that when you do call, but we're able to fulfill orders from people overseas, and we do it quite frequently, as well as our mainstay, which is the North American market. So if you do have some interest in talking about that, certainly set up an appointment, and we would be happy to talk about the logistics of moving product to and from and being able to sell locally, but still use Delta Harbor to facilitate that sale of product.
Yes, and additionally, if you live in an unstable jurisdiction, Canada is a great option to store your gold and silver. So we can definitely deal with people offshore and store their gold and silver in Canada.
Yes, that's a good point, Robin. In fact, the metals bourse, or as good as I can tell, the kind of heads of the metal industry in Canada, which includes Delta Harbor, we talk every once in a while, and it involves some of the big heads of the mining companies. And Canada is viewed as the single most stable jurisdiction for gold and silver storage in the world, bar down. More so than Switzerland, more so than Singapore, more so than the US. Canada is viewed as the safest jurisdiction in the world to store product. And in part, I believe that's because our government has zero interest in it. Because one of the common questions we get asked is, do you foresee a time when gold and silver might be confiscated? Not here. There's no precedent for it. In the US, it was a very long time ago, but in order to confiscate gold, it would have to be at a much higher price. In fact, it would have to be reset to probably $10,000 an ounce or higher. So we don't foresee that occurring here in Canada. Our government has zero interest in gold. We have no gold holdings to talk about or silver. And quite frankly, we've sold most of everything we had during the Trudeau period. And so right now we rank somewhere around 100 in the top 100 gold holding countries of the world. So again, that's why people think this is a safe jurisdiction along with a safe country to begin with. So it's great point to point out, and certainly we're happy to answer that question for you.
Great.
What else do we have, Rob?
Can you invest in gold and silver, maybe bronze, as one investment instead of buying individually?
Whoa, that's a lot to unpackage. Can you invest in gold, silver, and maybe bronze as one investment instead of buying individually? Well, we can package together gold and silver, certainly. And I may not be understanding the question correctly, Daryl. So please rephrase if you need to. But we certainly can package products together. But bronze is not an option for us unless I'm mistaking how you're using the term bronze. But again, we can package gold, silver, platinum, palladium, rhodium, molybdenum. There's a number of products that we don't list on our site that we could offer to those wanting to get a more comprehensive package, and we can do that individually. And you can do that all as one package put together for one person and just take it all at once.
Great. Next question is about registered accounts. So how do I transfer an existing Questrade investment to gold and silver through Delta Harbor? So if somebody already has a Questrade account. Yeah.
That's a great question. Assume you have an account. Let's just assume you have an account in another trading institution. Let's say you have TD or RBC or Scotiabank, and you want to use that RSP to invest in gold and silver. No problem. You would come to us, and what we would do is walk you through the account opening process with Questrade. Once your account is open, you'll be issued an account number, and then you'll be able to click a link there using a wizard, which will show you how to input your institution's information, meaning you put in the Scotiabank account number, you put in the Scotiabank address. You never have to talk to another person at Scotiabank. You never have to ask a question of your planner or advisor. And in fact, I know a lot of people get antsy or nervous about having to do that. This never has to happen. You can simply use our partner Questrade to run through that wizard once your account's open, and then transfer that account over in cash. It stays under the umbrella of the TFSA or the RSP or the LIF, RIF, LIR, whatever it is, and it comes over to Questrade, landing as a cash position. Inside that umbrella, no taxes involved, nothing that you have to worry about. Once it's here, it lands as a cash position, and the most common cash position on average is around 35,000. That 35,000 lands in the account, and you can divide that up in own gold and silver. And still, if you want to invest in other stocks or other options, you can do that as well. So you could have gold, silver, stocks, bonds, you could have ETFs and everything in there, but you can also just apply that to gold and silver. And the process, it's super simple. It's literally, they're going to ask you the question, put in the information, follow the links, keep clicking until you're finished, and we get an update of that process as it's ongoing. And then once the funds arrive, takes around 10 days to do that. The account is ready, and you can invest in gold and silver and get logging in there and seeing what it's doing, see all of your profit margins and so forth. And I think you'll be very happy to do that. It's a great account option.
Great. Okay, so the next question is about anonymity. So does Delta Harbor report any purchases or sales to the federal or provincial governments? And there's a few different versions of that question, but basically, does that change if it's a registered or non-registered account or a different province?
Well, essentially for us, it's a very simple process. Number one, I will start with a caveat. We certainly don't condone the act of foregoing your responsibilities as far as capital gains are concerned. That being said, in the registered accounts, TFSAs, RSPs, that is the standard for reporting. When you do that account, there is no option for not reporting or for anything. We don't submit anything. The government already knows. So in registered accounts, that is going to be something that can't be overlooked, no matter what you own in that account, whether it's stocks, bonds, ETFs, or physical gold and silver. The reporting mechanism is built in, it's regulated, and it goes to the government, and they know what everything is. That being said, outside of the registered account, again, remember my caveat, you're on the honor system. And when you buy gold and silver, it's up to you to report that ownership. It's up to you to report that profitability. It's up to you to tell them what you bought, how much of what you bought, and what you did with it. And quite frankly, that doesn't come on our heels or our shoulders, and there's no way for us to report that information. Certainly, we abide by FinTrack rules. We abide by the Office of Foreign Asset Control rules. We abide by IROC rules when it comes to our registered accounts. But unless there's some type of behavior which is nefarious or a red flag for us, 99.9% of transactions, it's the honor system. And when you buy bullion and take it home from us, you have to report it yourself. So it's up to you to do that, to share with your accountant, to your planner, advisor, or to self-submit. And that is not going to be the responsibility of Delta Harbor, nor do we report it anywhere. It's just a retail invoice you bought from us and we sold to you, and that's it. So quite frankly, the answer to your question is no, we don't have that responsibility. You have to take care of that.
Great.
Okay.
We have a couple comments here I just want to read out.
Right.
So one is actually a comment about one of our sales staff. And so if I wanted to play tennis or golf, I'd seek out someone who has played at a high level. I want to ride this historic silver boom, and I've been watching all the experts on YouTube with conflicting views. Justin has been through a silver bull run in 2011, and if you believe history repeats, then get involved now. I've had so much success thus far listening to his advice. I'm certain he has experience to guide me to the top of this current silver bull run. Leverage and a strong stomach are definitely attributes to success in this market. So thank you very much. I appreciate that, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. And I'm sure Justin appreciates that feedback. It's very important. You'll notice at Delta Harbor, and again, this is not a point to ponder, but more so of a pat on the back. When we put this firm together, one, trust was everything. So with Justin, I've known Justin a very long time. He's been working in the industry since 2009. Robert, I've known all my life. Greg, known all my life. These are people that I trust, that we work with. And these are not people that I don't know anything about or know who they are. I know where they live. I know where they're going every day when they put their head down on their pillow. And that's just trust. And when we're building a very big global brand, it's important to know the people you're working with. And that for us is second to none when it comes to customer service. So it's a crucial component of what we do here. And sometimes people will say, hey, listen, I went to, for example, I went to Costco and I found an ounce of gold and it was cheaper there than it was with you guys. That may be so. And what we say is that you can have price and you can have quality and you can have service, but you can't have all three. So if you want to compromise one of them, you're compromising the other two. So ultimately, if you just want the cheapest bullion, sometimes that'll be us. When it's not us, all we ask is give us a chance to compete. If we can't, we'll be the first to say that unfortunately we can't at this time compete with that price. But ultimately, customer service is what the backbone of this company is. And you'll see when you look at our reviews that that is the feedback we get, that the customer service is second to none. And I would put our customer service and the way we handhold clients up against any firm in the world right now in terms of the quality of that handholding. It's very important to us. It's an integral part of what we do every day, and we do it to a fault, which means our hours are way outside the norm. Justin's a perfect example of it. Although I don't encourage him to do it, he's available to his clients all hours of the week. And he loves it because he's passionate about it and it drives him to be better at his job. So we love getting that feedback. Thanks very much, Chris. Appreciate it.
Great. We have 11 more questions here, so let's get to
Okay,
them.
let's keep going.
Next one's another comment. Your staff are wonderful to deal with. My experience was with selling, so that's from Helen. Thank you very much.
Great. Helen, super duper. Yes, as an owner, you can come back to us to sell your product. Even if you bought it from somebody else, we will gladly help you do that. In most cases, you don't even have to leave your home to do it. We'll send you a shipping label. We'll give you the details on how to get rid of it. And all you got to do is drop it in the box and go from there. And we'll pay out to you via your account. It's a pretty simple process. We're happy to do it for you anytime.
Great. Shirley had asked about palladium and platinum, but I believe we already answered that in another question.
We did, and again, very, very important to discuss that. Shirley, I'm more than happy to have a phone call with you regarding that to make that a little more custom for you and to give you a little bit more of a private insight on what my thoughts are on palladium and platinum anytime.
Great. Next question is from an anonymous user here. How long does it take to set up a wholesale account?
That's a good question. I would say if I was to sit down right now and do the account from beginning to end, there's about 4 pages I have to go through. Take me about 15 minutes, 20 minutes if I'm committed to doing it. If I know I'm there and I want to do it and go to it, I can go through that process. And I would encourage anybody listening right now, if you want to go to our wholesale page and actually try opening up an account, you can do it. There's no harm in doing that. You can see what the process entails. You can see what you have to put down in terms of information. And it is a very simple process that I think is easy to go through.
Great. Where is the storage facility located from Jack?
Oh, that's a great question. So we have multiple storage facilities. We partner with what are called essentially class 3 vaults around North America and outside of North America, which give us storage options in a number of different localities around the world. Our at-home institutions, or the ones we use the most, are located in Toronto. We have 2 there. Also in Calgary, we have 1 there, and Delaware in the U.S., Texas in the U.S., we also have access to vaults in the Cayman Islands. We have access to vaults in London, Singapore, overseas, and the list goes on. So we do usually partner with recognized vaulting firms that were set up specifically to hold high net worth assets, and those partnerships allow us only by the way, partners that allow us to audit our product. We do not store with companies that will not allow you as a client to come in and physically hold your product. So those options just basically come down to where do you need it stored? Why do you need it stored there? Those kind of simple questions. And once we determine that, we go from there. Sometimes there are clients that are out on the West Coast, so we use Calgary. And of course, that means they may have to travel in from Vancouver or from BC or elsewhere. But usually we can facilitate in some of those instances a video audit as well. So that allows us to see everything by video audit. But that's a great question, Jack. We appreciate that. And those class 3 vaulting facilities are fully insured. and definitely are 1-to-1 in terms of ounce replacement. So they are insured against acts of Mother Nature, acts of vandalism, violence, theft, those kinds of normal things. And that insurance, in most cases, is twofold. So when we're talking about registered accounts, not only do you get the insurance from Questrade, but you also get the insurance from Lloyd's of London subsidiary here in Toronto. So that gives us unlimited amounts, literally, of insurance potential for that. And if you look at some of our pictures on our Instagram and Twitter account, you'll see there are images from inside the vaults. So you can actually see the vaults where gold goes. You can see the skids holding the bars of silver and in the what we call kind of mass storage or deep storage area. And when your product gets put into those vaults, it gets segregated and put on a rack with a sub-account number so that you're known by a number versus your name, so as not to give away identities and so forth. And of course, you can access that very easily. So it's a great question, Jack. Thanks for that.
Great. Let's see if we can answer two questions at once here. What's the cost of creating a wholesale account, and what's the cost of creating a setting up a Questrade and PMI account? So
okay. Cost of creating the wholesale account, cost of the bullion, cost of doing business. The cost of doing business is simply deciding what you think will serve you best. In our firm, as I mentioned before, it's a $4 spread on the price of gold. So spot plus $4. On silver, it's 30 cents, spot plus 30 cents. And then onto that, you would tack the cost of our service fee. In the wholesale accounts, you have two options. One would be to use a flat rate fee of 10%. That's a one-time fee, and then you can buy and sell that amount of gold or silver, platinum, palladium as many times as you want, as frequently or infrequently as you wish, without paying another commission on top, just the spread. Or you can choose to do a little bit more of a long-term approach, which allows for you to just park it and forget about it, where you'd pay 5% on the buy and then 2% on the sell subsequently. And again, choosing which option is best for you depends on what type of ownership you want, how aggressive you want to be, how speculative you want to be, and how supercharged you want your account to get. But we've offered those two options to make it convenient for you to get into the marketplace. Now, when it comes to storage, on the wholesale bullion accounts, we're looking at a cost of 1.5% of the total metal value per year. That's charged on a monthly basis. And in the registered accounts, when you're looking at buying bullion, just use our website as reference. That's basically the best way to reference buying a bullion bar or coin. That's roughly going to be the cost. And then the storage cost on the registered accounts is 1.25%. And then, of course, in vaulted storage, the storage cost drops to 1% or less.
great. But there is no fee for opening the account.
None. There are
The
no
fees
opening
that
fee
we
accounts.
charge are included in the price of the gold and silver.
That's correct. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. We don't want to tie you into anything. If you want to open up the account and close it tomorrow without making a purchase, that's your prerogative. We want you to have that flexibility.
Yeah. All right, we got 7 more questions here. Can I
All right, let's
go
go.
and see my holdings in a vaulted storage?
Yes, all voltage storage is accessible. So whether you have a voltage storage account, a wholesale bullion account, a registered bullion account, all of the bullion that gets put into a vault is accessible and auditable. You can go in there and see it, set up an appointment and a time that suits your needs, and then of course you can get or take pictures of it, hold it. I've seen a lot of crazy things. Again, on our Instagram and our socials, you will see our clients from time to time will give us permission to go ahead and take photos of them in the vault. They are anonymous because you don't know who they are, but you can see a person there with a rack, and there are a few there. If you don't see them, by all means, contact us, or when you book your appointment, ask for some pictures. They're fantastic, of people standing and posing with their gold and silver. It's awesome.
Right, great. Next question is, are palladium and platinum available in wholesale?
Yes, they are absolutely available. We don't do very much of it in the wholesale accounts. But again, they are available in terms of pricing. You can contact us directly because it is a very low volume amount of client base that actually do that. But if you want to contact us, you can definitely have gold, silver, platinum, and palladium in those accounts if you want.
Okay. In relation to the fiat currency crisis, how do you foresee the price of the metals reacting when people and or capital flow lot loses confidence in their foreign governments, or foreign governments?
Well, it's a great question, and we're seeing it right now. And in fact, you're living in a time and space in which the confidence of fiat currencies is faltering. So let's remember what history tells us. History tells us every single currency ever created goes to zero. I'll say it again. Every single currency ever created is on a path to zero value. The only currencies to survive the entire history of man are gold and silver. That's it. Every other fiat currency that has been created on paper has gone to zero at some point in history and will continue to do so. So ultimately, as we start to lose faith, and you can see it now as the BRIC countries predominantly are looking for alternatives, Middle Eastern countries looking for alternatives. In the past, circumvention of the US dollar almost always resulted in war. Look no further than Iraq. In the early 90s, Saddam wanted to circumvent the US dollar, create a petrodollar system where they would exchange oil, and that would be the basis of the currency. And what happened? All of a sudden, they created weapons of mass destruction. We went in there, and the U.S. bombed the hell out of that country. And of course, there were no weapons of mass destruction, and the threat was overrun. And the essential bottom ingredient of that was that Iraq wanted to circumvent the usage of the U.S. dollar with Middle Eastern countries, and the U.S. said, no way. So take a look at your deep history, read where you need to, be researched, be understanding of that. But we're living in a day and space and time in which we are losing confidence in fiat currency. So what typically happens when that occurs? You see central banks buy gold. Central bankers have been net buyers of gold since 2009. That means they are losing faith as we speak. They are trimming the largest holdings they have, which are the US dollar, US Treasury, and China is the largest example of that. They control the fate of the US dollar in their hands alone. And they themselves, if they started dumping US Treasuries, could solely take down the US dollar 10, 20%. And so we're watching what's called the US dollar index, and that is the strength of the US dollar against a basket of 7 or 6 other currencies on a day-to-day basis. And when that index starts to fall, we typically see the price of gold rise dramatically. It's almost like it gives steroids to gold. So that ultimately is the greatest thing that's happening right now. We're seeing the unwavering and the wavering response to whether or not gold, U.S. dollar, will be the reserve currency for much longer, and we don't think it will. I think inside the next 10 to 12 years, we'll have a Bretton Woods moment where we have to consider another currency as a better option than the U.S. dollar.
Great. I just want to remind people after this presentation is over, because we're getting close to time here, you could book an appointment with us. I've already sent out an email at 8 p.m. From Eventbrite, which has a link to our consultation booking page. So you can click on that. You can book an appointment at any time that works for you. And we have evening and weekend spots available. So if you have more questions, we're happy to do a one-on-one presentation for you and walk you through anything you like for free. Just click that link in that email that you received at 8 o'clock, and we'll go from there. We've got 7 more questions here.
All right, let's go.
With the rise in military spending, what precious metals are most in demand?
Military spending directly related to metals would be silver and gold. Silver in particular is an interesting metal because it is used in every single war tip that you can create around the world. Every single military that uses any type of missile. The Tomahawk is one great example of a missile that's used predominantly throughout North America. Every single one that gets made has 5 pounds of silver in it. So again, it's heavily used by the military, both gold and silver. Gold more so for high-end communications applications, also for bombs and things of that nature. I know it's a kind of ugly topic, but it's a great question, Larry, because military spending is among the highest it's ever been in the history of mankind, and it's going to get higher with the demand to have certainty about protection when uncertainty sets in. So military spending will mean that they're buying more and spending more, and that'll mean more usage of gold and silver, but also gold as a strategic reserve. We're only seeing a handful of central banks around the world using silver right now as a strategic reserve. Mostly all the central banks use gold. But as we get more uncertainty, more and more military spending, especially regionally, you'll see the central banks of those areas ramp up their buying. So far, because most of the military action is overseas, you're seeing the BRICS nations and the Middle Eastern regions become the largest connoisseurs of gold over the last little while.
Great, thank you. I have a next question is from Barry. I'm a current client of Delta Harbor. I have approximately 100,000 Canadian in a workplace RIF. I'm considering moving this account to a precious metals account. What's the process to do a transfer?
It's very simple. Barry, first off, touch base with your account representative. If that's myself, please feel free to do so. And of course, doing that is very simple to do. What we have to do is just make certain that we're bringing it over in the right form. So is it RIF to RIF? Are we doing a conversion from RIF to RSP or anything like that? But once it gets converted and moved over, it's easy to handle and it's easy to do. The process just requires you to walk through the account opening or adding an account if you already have a Questrade account, and then applying for the funding. And then what we do is we use Questrade, their expertise, to determine everything on their end that needs to be done in the back end. So they'll approach the RIF, the company that the RIF is parked with currently. They'll handle all of that. They'll handle the transportation of that funds over to their account. They'll do all of that. And that's part of the great teamwork that we have when we work with Questrade. And so ultimately, it's a very easy thing to do. It's no more difficult than opening a registered account and moving that over as well. And we're happy to help you. Just get on that phone, call, and delighted to walk through that process. And if I were you, I'd be doing it too. This is a common thing. It happens on a weekly basis. So the RIF thing and the moval of from one arena over to the Questrade to get gold and silver in there, we do it all the time. No tax implications. You're not gassing yourself with some tax hit or anything like that. You're simply taking the value of that RIF over there and you're moving it over to Questrade with Delta Harbor to buy gold and silver instead of what it's currently invested in.
Okay, great. Another question here. What is a Class 3 vault?
From Shirley. Shirley, a Class 3 vault is a vault which has, first off, a couple of unique things that govern its existence. One, it must have double security. So not only do they have full-time live-in security that stays 24 hours a day, they also have off-site security, which is very close by. It must be armed. So all of the people that work there have the ability to carry arms, and they do have the ability to conceal weapons inside of the facility. It must adhere to a certain set of credentials when it comes to the building itself. It must have a certain X amount of concrete in it, and the thickness of the walls, and the number of cameras, and the way it's set up, and how it's divided, and where the gold goes versus the silver, how it gets stored. All those things that make it similar to what we would find at Fort Knox or any other place that's a Class 3 vaulting facility. In other words, it's the highest safety and insurance in terms of vaulting facilities that we can get.
Great. I can actually answer the next couple of questions here. Is there any cost for setting up my Questrade or PMI accounts? We believe we touched on that a little bit already, but again, there's no cost for setting the account up. There's a storage fee, a minor storage fee, in these accounts, and then there's the price of the metal, and the price of the metal takes into account the spot price plus any fees charged. So that one is answered. The next one is, can I book my consultation after hours? So our booking engine allows us to set availabilities. Tonight we've added some availability for the next couple of hours. So you can go ahead and book a consultation tonight, or give us a call as soon as we hang up this on this presentation. You can call our office and we'll be answering the phones. But we do have as a matter of practice, some evening and weekend availability, and it's already in the booking engine. You just go in there, you choose a day, and you'll see all the available slots. So I've answered that one. I hear there are more countries backing their currencies with gold and silver. Russia's one. Can you comment on that?
Well, again, Shirley, great question, great point. Central banks around the world are certainly net buyers now, and they are doing this en masse in comparison. And as you may or may not know, the holdings that have been reported in Fort Knox have not been properly, I guess, audited since the 1960s. There really hasn't been a thorough audit. So we don't know what's in Fort Knox. We don't know if the largest stockpile of gold, which is supposed to be there, is really there. Again, all kinds of wild conspiracies about it, but if it is there, it's the largest stockpile of gold in the world, which makes them the king of gold ownership. But again, around the world, the nation after nation after nation, I think last quarter it was Turkey and Kazakhstan who were the largest net buyers, their central banks. So again, this is happening all over the world. And the reason for ownership, as we said before, is not only to protect themselves against regional stability in the event of war or an event of the breach of the normal movement of digital currency. Fiat currency is digital, just add a zero whenever you want. It's also to protect themselves and have collateral in the event regionally they are asked to or forced to participate in any unstable action, whether that's sanctions or whether they're part of war for any reason or anything like that. If they have gold, it's used as collateral. And so ultimately, that's one of the things that they love about owning it. Again, it stands to reason that a country like Canada doesn't own a lot of gold because it's a stable country. It's a stable jurisdiction. It doesn't think it needs it. It doesn't see value in it. The second that changes and that headline reads that Canada invested in even 1 ton of gold, everyone else will run to buy that product. So we don't want to wait until that time. But ultimately, yes, Russia is a huge buyer. China, all of the BRICS countries are buyers and owners of gold, and now some silver as well. India and in Spain, and there are other countries which are buying silver hand over fist or nationalizing their mining programs. Argentina, Venezuela. So they're pulling that product out of the ground for their own usages. And this is a day and age unlike any other we've been in. This has never happened before. So that's an amazing point to make. And if they're doing it and we're not, what the heck? Why are central banks not telling us this is a crucial thing? If you were to go to China, you'd see it. They encourage their citizens to buy and own gold. It is a smart thing. Just like we wake up and hear you've got to contribute to your registered accounts, they're hearing you've got to have gold in ownership. Buy it. This is how you do it. They have vending machines. It's far more common to be able to buy gold in those places around the world than it is here. So ultimately, yes, we're seeing something that happens over there, which is a cultural phenomena versus what's happening in the West, which is we're addicted to paper. We think paper will never burn, never crash. And we wake up every day with that confidence and that assurance. But what happens if 2008 happens again and we can't print the money to save us? We all burn. I mean, we could wake up in the span of 3 weeks and half our wealth is gone, 3/4 of our wealth, it vanishes overnight. Now retirement isn't an option. Now we can't go to our money because retirement is no longer going to be feasible. We lost half the value of our holdings in the span of a very short period of time. And then you had the follow up where people got on the phone and said, hey, it's a long term market. Hold on, Mr. Smith. Don't worry. That's exactly what happened to me in 2008. Now, I got out of the market, but what I had left and what fell in value, my broker got on and told me, don't worry. It's a long term market. Hold on, hold through. Okay, well, you can only do that for so long. I mean, half of us only had our money come back in a boom period between 2010, 2020 to what it was in 2008. That's horrible. It's not enough. So ultimately, it's a great point to make, but they are already doing it. So we should be doing it too. Be your own central bank, in other words, Shirley. Accumulate for that purpose alone.
Okay, great. We've got one last question here, and then maybe we could show the screen with the consultation booking page.
Yes, absolutely.
Last
Uh,
question here is can you create corporate accounts with Plus Trade and PMI? Fantastic question.
the short answer is yes, you certainly can. You can definitely do that. What you can put in a registered account on a corporate side is a little bit more fickle because it has to be corporate, but you can do both. And I would highly advise you to do that because if there's any costs associated with opening the account or a fee on the bullion or whatever the case is, you can write that off as a corporate entity. So there are lots of advantages to doing that. And as we said earlier, employers, if you own a company, I would highly recommend that you add bullion to your employee benefit packages. Make them happy. Give them something that's going to grow and accrue in value, which doesn't cost them an arm and a leg, which falls out of the purview of the banking system. This is an awesome way to benefit your employees and your workplaces. But yes, you can absolutely open up corporate accounts, and we encourage it.
Fantastic. That wraps up all the questions. So maybe while you're getting that page up, I just want to remind people next steps. You have any more questions? You want us to walk you through the opening of an account? We are here to help, and you just go on to our consultation booking page, choose a time that works for you, and you create an appointment. It'll send you the calendar invite, remind you through text as well, so you don't forget. And yeah, we're more than happy to sit down and walk you through and answer any questions. If you know of another group that would benefit from this presentation, we're also more than happy to do this presentation again for small groups of people. We're more than happy to do that. So thank you once
And
again.
while we're doing that,
Yeah.
well, sorry to interrupt, Rob. While we're doing that, I want to say thank you to those that took the time to tune in and listen to this presentation. As Rob just said, we're greatly appreciative of your time. We know how important it is to you and how little of it we have or seem to have these days. But these are the exact things that I wish somebody had told me 20 years ago when I first got into this. So, yes, dial that number. Book the consultation. As you'll see here, I'll show you. If you click the book a consultation, it'll take you right to the website. Very simple to get to. And then, of course, you can just scroll down, select the time, and then you can book and see what's available for you. And there we have a couple already tonight. So go ahead and book that, and feel free to ask questions, whether it is a consultation down the road or whether you just like to dial in. Please feel free to do so. We'd be excited to and lucky, privileged to speak with you. So thank you again for being part of this presentation. And that brings this to a close now. And without going on much further, personally, being my 21st year in the marketplace, I can think of no better place to diversify my wealth. Gold and silver for me has been a godsend for me, for my family. It's allowed me flexibility that's unheard of in this day and age. It's allowed me to have a traditional family set where I've been able to focus on my children, their growth, being able to put them through school. I've used it for so many things. And what lies ahead is what I would call the best is yet to come. So when you're thinking of buying gold and silver, it really doesn't matter what you focus on. But I would suggest that you share this with anyone that you love, with any single person out there that's meaningful to you, that you think would benefit from ownership, that wants to have private wealth outside of the banking system without prying eyes. Get some gold and silver and put it into your portfolio. I think you'll be darn pleased. And what we see lying ahead is so exciting. We see silver in the next couple of years being well above $60 an ounce. We took the poll earlier. People thought $60+ an ounce. I think it's capable in the next couple of years of hitting triple digits, low triple digits. It's a very exciting time to be involved. And what you'll do is you'll look back and pat yourself on the back for being a part of this. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for being part of this. And we look forward to speaking with you very soon.